welcome to our platform party.
Please rise for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Professor McLean. Don't know if you know, some of you know, but all of you should know that Professor McLean is a faculty member, clearly a very talented faculty member in the School of Law. So thank you as always. Welcome to the first annual Faculty Convocation of the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I would like to also extend a very special welcome to the members of our platform party and special guests joining us today. So what exactly is a convocation? Well, the word is derived from the Latin word convocationium, which means a calling together or assembling of persons. Today's assembly, this convocation, is the birth of a new tradition at UMB. It is an opportunity for the faculty from each of UMB's schools to gather in fellowship with one another to celebrate the beginning of the academic year. It is well understood that an institution is only as excellent as its faculty. UMB is an excellent university. It is therefore only fitting that we take time today to recognize and celebrate those who make us so, our faculty. I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge the dedicated staff at UMB who work in support of and in partnership with the faculty to curate a comprehensive and nurturing learning environment for those we are here to serve, our students. So to the staff, thank you for your dedication and support, and to our students, thank you for giving us purpose. 3 years ago, UMB established the Distinguished University Professor. This designation is the highest rank bestowed on a faculty member at UMB. It is a recognition of excellence and of the impact and significant contributions the nominee has made to their discipline, profession, and practice. The recipients were nominated by their peers and recommended for the professorship to the provost and president by a committee of accomplished faculty members representing each of the schools. For the first time, the review committee included faculty members who were themselves distinguished university professors. Today, UMB proudly bestows the title of Distinguished University Professor on 7 highly accomplished colleagues. I would ask that each of the 2022 recipients join me on stage when I call your name. Now, if you'll tolerate me, I have one disclaimer. What I will say about each recipient can only be a mere snippet of their very extensive bio and does not come even remotely close to capturing the full breadth and depth and impact of their remarkable careers and accomplishments. For this reason, we will make their full bios available for review on the Office of the Provost's website. I should also point out that the medals that each of our distinguished university professor receives is made by our internal resident metal artist, none other than President Bruce Gerald. For him, it's a work of labor, a labor of love, and for us, the price is right. So we take it. All right, so now to our distinguished university professors. Professor Leslie Costello. Dr. Costello has been a member of the University of Maryland School of Dentistry faculty since 1980 and has distinguished himself as an educator and biomedical researcher. Dr. Costello's research, which focuses on the metabolism of cancer cells, has received more than 5 decades of extramural funding and has made significant contributions to the scientific understanding of cancer, particularly prostate cancer. Dr. Costello received his first NIH and NSF grants in 1962. Since then, he has been awarded approximately $30 million to support 31 grants, including 23 from NIH. His discoveries and insights have had widespread implications for the understanding and treatment of prostate cancer, as well as breast, pancreatic, liver, and head and neck cancers. Congratulations, Professor Costello. Professor Diane Hoffman. You know, you have to always try to keep the dean straight. Professor Hoffman has been a faculty member at the Francis King Carey School of Law since 1987. She is an internationally recognized expert on the intersection of law, ethics, healthcare, and public policy. She has led the school's highly ranked law and healthcare program for more than 20 years. Professor Hoffman has published extensively on health law and policy in top-tier legal journals, as well as in high-impact scientific medical journals, including Science, JAMA, the New England Journal of Medicine, and the Annals of Internal Medicine. As a lawyer, by the way. Professor Hoffman was one of the primary authors of Maryland's Healthcare Decision Act, which established standards and procedures for making medical decisions for individuals at the end of life who lack decision-making capacity. She's also the founder and director of the Maryland Healthcare Ethics Committee Network, which publishes the Mid-Atlantic Ethics Committee newsletter. Congratulations, Professor Hoffman. All right, let's stick with the lawyers. Professor, that means the dean needs to come back. Professor Robert Percival. Professor Percival joined the Francis King Carey School of Law in 1987 and is internationally recognized as a leading scholar and educator on the topic of environmental law. He is the principal author of the most widely used casebook on environmental law in the United States, Environmental Regulation, Law, Science, and Policy, which is now in its 9th edition. He is the author of more than 100 publications on topics such as federalism, presidential powers, regulatory policy, and legal history. He has served as the contributing editor for Environment and Natural Resources for the Federal Circuit Bar Journal and as a special master for the U.S. District Court of Maryland. Professor Percival has received numerous awards and accolades, including the University System of Maryland Board of Regents Faculty Award for Collaborative Teaching, UMB's Teacher of the Year Award, and numerous external awards, including the Award for Distinguished Achievement in Environmental Law and Policy from the American Bar Association's Section on Environment, Energy, and Resources Law. Congratulations, Professor Percival. Professor Barbara Resnick. Dr. Resnick has been a faculty member at the University of Maryland School of Nursing since 1993. Her research is focused on optimizing function and physical activity among older adults, exploring resilience and genetics on function and physical activity, and testing dissemination and implementation of interventions in real-world settings. She is a prolific scholar with more than 380 refereed publications in high-impact nursing, medical, and interdisciplinary journals relevant to geriatrics and behavior change. She has written over 55 book chapters in nursing and medical textbooks and is the editor or co-editor of 11 books. An accomplished and committed educator, Dr. Resnick developed and directed the School of Nursing's master's level geriatric nurse practitioner program and its successor doctoral level adult gerontological nurse practitioner program. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing, a fellow of the American Academy of Nurse Practitioners, and a fellow of the Gerontological Society of America. In 2015, she was inducted into the International Nurse Researcher Hall of Fame by the International Honor Society of Nursing. Congratulations, Professor Resnick. Professor Peter Swann. Okay, the dean's there. Dr. Swann is a world-renowned and highly accomplished pharmaceutical researcher and educator who has been on the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy faculty since 2003. Dr. Swann's research is focused on unraveling the transport mechanism of bile acids. The signaling functions of bile acids can be exploited in the development of many drugs, including for obesity and type 2 diabetes. His research laboratory has been funded by the NIH for more than 20 years. He has received over $10 million in funding from federal and state agencies, pharmaceutical companies, foundations, and regulatory agencies. Dr. Swann's scientific record includes over 135 research papers published in high-impact journals, more than 200 published abstracts, 9 book chapters, and several patents, making him a highly sought-after speaker nationally and internationally. Since 2015, Dr. Swann has been chair of the Board of Grants for the American Foundation of Pharmaceutical Education, and for more than a decade, he was editor-in-chief of one of the premier journals in pharmaceutical sciences, the Springer Nature Journal of Pharmaceutical Research. Congratulations, Professor Swann. Professor Stephanie Borgel. Dr. Vogel has been a University of Maryland School of Medicine faculty member since 2002. Her research focuses on the fundamental mechanisms by which our cells fight infectious diseases and tumor growth. Her laboratory has made seminal contributions to the area of immunology, particularly related to cell signaling. This has allowed her to develop new approaches to fighting viruses, such as influenza, and to designing potential vaccines. Dr. Vogel has been section editor and associate editor for the Journal of Immunology, serves as on the editorial advisory board of Innate Immunity, and reviews manuscripts for numerous journals. An author of over 300 peer-reviewed publications, Dr. Vogel has mentored 35 postdoctoral fellows and 11 graduate students and directs the National Institutes of Health Training Grant. Dr. Vogel won the prestigious International Association of Inflammation Society's Women in Information Science Award in 2015, the Postdoctoral Mentor Award from the School of Medicine's Graduate Program in Life Sciences in 2018, and the American Association of Immunologists Distinguished Fellow Award in 2021. Congratulations, Professor Vogt. We have one more, Professor Dudley Strickland from the School of Medicine. Dr. Strickland is unable to be here as he's presenting at a conference. He has been a member of the University of Maryland School of Medicine since 2004. Dr. Strickland's research has been continuously funded since 1982. His research has had a profound impact on biomedical sciences related to Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. He has been invited to present over 40 plenary lectures at national and international meetings and has made more than 60 seminar presentations at universities across the country. Dr. Strickland has over 240 peer-reviewed publications in journals including Cell, Molecular Cell, Journal of Clinical Investigation, Neuron, and the Journal of Cell Biology. As Associate Dean of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies in the School of Medicine, he oversees 300 students participating in 7 graduate programs and leads an office of over 300 postdoctoral scholars. Congratulations, Professor Strickland. Faculty, staff, students, and guests, I present to you UMB's newest cohort of distinguished university professors. Please join me in congratulating this outstanding cohort of colleagues.
Thank you, Provost Ward. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to welcome all of you. And I have to say, there's faces out there that I've never seen at a university event, so thank you for being here. I want to add my congratulations of those to you in the front row, also to those of you who helped make this event occur. Lastly, I have to tell you how wonderful Professor McLean's singing is. And I don't know what you all think. Russell, thank you for the benefit of hearing you sing. It just warms my heart, and it also tells you what a wonderful university we have. So I came to this university 25 years ago. I came as a surgeon. I came to work every day like many of you. I focused on my specialty, that is surgery, and it was a narrow focus. I was under a small tent, if you will, so to speak. Some days entirely in the operating room, most days not even at UMB, but rather in the medical center. I saw my students, I saw my residents, I saw my colleagues, and I saw the department, occasionally parts of the school. And I lived under that small tent for many years. I focused on my patients and I focused on my department. And as wonderful as that was and that experience was for me, and I hope those around me, I did not see other things at UMB. How many tents there were here at UMB, and there are a lot. Being in that narrow environment put blinders on me. I couldn't see what else there was at this university. As my role changed at the campus, I began to see a lot of excellence outside my small surgery tent in the School of Medicine. There were other tents, how about that? And in them were schools and programs and other things. And everywhere I looked, I saw people who were committed, who were accomplished and outstanding, who had diverse interests and passions very, very different from the reasons I came here and what I did for many years. And I have to tell you that as I look around and from this perch that I have now, the excellence that I see in the faculty at UMB is quite honestly astounding. I'm amazed. There are many stories I could tell you, but I'm not going to do that today. Of course, those stories relate to a number of things. One of them is about teachers touching many careers. I heard of a faculty member in the School of Law who had touched 3 generations of students, meaning a grandfather, father, child. I may not have the gender right, but I have the generation right. So it's about touching many careers. It's also about researchers, and you just heard about some of them, making discoveries, things that are life-changing to us in society, or caring for a client in the community, or taking care of a special patient with needs that are beyond the ordinary care. And I can tell you that's life-changing when you cure a patient or when you help a patient get cured, because I don't think you cure somebody. But I also have heard many other stories, and those stories, many of them, are about service efforts of faculty, and of course staff and students too, but we're here today about faculty, about service to the community, and how life-changing interventions in the community can be in terms of improving people's care. And some of you may remember the Be More Healthy Babies program and the tremendous impact that a program has. But occasionally there are other stories too, and they're personal stories, personal life stories, particularly about a faculty member who had to overcome overwhelming obstacles to just get here, to get his or her degree, to become an expert, and to get to a place like UMB, of all the good places that they could go. Those are faculty members that overcame overwhelming obstacles that I suspect most of us in this room can't even understand, the obstacles that they had to overcome to get here. But with that relentless pursuit of excellence resulted in a successful, productive career here at UMB. And we will hear from one such individual in a few minutes. And I dare say, no doubt, if you look under your own tent, I was the surgery tent, if you look under your own tent, you will find many stories just like that, stories that remain under your tent and nobody else at UMB necessarily hears about. And of course, that's what this convocation is about, to talk about that. Now, at UMB, we live under a big tent, and I like the analogy. We are under a big tent right now. But more importantly, we have many great faculty members with great stories, and I suspect everyone has a great story with success and impact in it. And obviously, those stories have not been heard outside their school. So I'm hoping that we'll hear one or two outside their own tent. So to celebrate our outstanding faculty at this convocation, we're doing something a little bit different. I've asked 3 faculty members, yes, 3 out of several thousand. So it's not a scientific process, to tell a story, a TED Talk-like story about their passion, about their commitment to service, about how important service is to them individually. Our first speaker is from the School of Law, Professor Mcpherson, Francis King Carey School of Law. A lot of excellence in there. She's going to discuss faulty forensics. We're going to find out whether CSI is really truthful or not. So Professor Sinha, please tell us about this topic.
Good morning, everyone. And congratulations one more time to our distinguished university professors. Let's talk about Tinder. Yes, I do mean the dating app. And yes, I am serious. You weren't expecting to come to convocation this morning to talk about every millennial's favorite dating app, were you? But here we are. So let's do a quick poll. How many of you, put your hands up for me, have been on Tinder or Bumble or one of those dating apps? Surprise, surprise. I've got 2 hands, a whole two. Okay, even if you haven't been on those apps, I'm gonna tell you how they work. Okay, so you download an app on your phone, and when you open it up, you see somebody's profile picture and a short bio. And if you're not interested, you swipe to the left. You see another picture and you swipe to the left again. Another picture, again. Once you find somebody that you are interested in, you swipe right. And if they swiped right on you too, ding, 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 science has found you a date. I mean, it is science, right? So let's stop right there. I see you all looking like I just got out of the Stone Age, and I can see Dr. Gerald's eyes glaring into the back of my head. Why did I invite Professor Sinha? You're looking at me like that because you know that Tinder and Bumble aren't science. You know that. Now, all of a sudden, you all know about dating apps, right? Okay. So you know that it's not dating science, but why not? It looks good. Those apps are fancy. They're pretty. They use an algorithm. Algorithms are science, right? Well, for one thing, they don't use the scientific method. They aren't based on rigorous testing. They're not vetted by scientists. There aren't guardrails in place to make sure that they're not misused. Sure, they're super fun, but they weren't validated to make sure that you're getting out of them what you downloaded the app to get, which is a date. And you know all of that from your own personal experience. For those of you who've actually been on the apps, you know that sometimes you're presented with a match, but you're not so sure about it. And you swipe right anyway, because you want them to be. That's the whole point of the app, right? You swipe right, you meet them, you go out on a date, and the whole date's a big old womp womp. Don't get me wrong. Of course, sometimes 2 people swipe right, they meet, they get together, and the whole thing works great. But most people still swiping. Now, I want you to take that idea that something can look and feel like science even without having real science behind it and apply it to something a lot more menacing than dating apps. And that is the criminal legal system. Now, I know, you thought that I was here today in my capacity as UMB's VP of Tinder Affairs. But actually, I'm a criminal defense attorney. Before joining UMB, I spent 10 years as a public defender representing poor people charged with crimes. And now at Carey Law, I teach my students how to do that work. When I started practicing, I expected that all of the technology, all of the forensics used in criminal cases was just as scientific and reliable as many of you may think it is right now. I mean, just like Dr. Gerald, I've watched CSI. I've seen the computers light up, bing, bing, bing. I've seen the 2 prints slowly move across the computer screen to overlay exactly on top of each other. And I've seen the man in the white lab coat turn and look directly into the screen and say, bingo, right? I've seen CSI. But I was wrong. CSI was wrong. We were all wrong. What I learned on the job was something entirely different. I learned that a lot of the so-called science used to police and prosecute our communities, used to convict, hasn't been scientifically vetted in the ways that we'd expect it to be or that we'd want it to be. Even the stuff that could be reliable is used for purposes it was never intended for, at the margins, or pushed beyond its limits, or its conclusions are exaggerated, all of which make it no longer good science. And in fact, I learned this. A lot of the forensics we see in criminal cases today wasn't developed in scientific labs or research universities like ours. They were developed by police departments for prosecution or by for-profit companies to sell to police departments for prosecutions. Forensics look good. It looks like science. But a lot of it is no better than swiping left, looking for a match until you see what you want to see. So, what's the problem if it's not as scientific as we thought it was? I mean, it gets people who do bad things off the streets, right? So I want to make one thing clear. Of course this stuff works sometimes, same way that sometimes you match with somebody great on Tinder or Bumble and it works out. But is that good enough when we transpose it onto the criminal legal system? Everyone here knows that the criminal legal system disproportionately harms Black, brown, and other marginalized communities. Even after you control for other variables, Black and brown people are stopped more by police, they're searched more, they have force and violence used against them more, they're arrested more, they're held before trial more, they get worse plea offers and longer sentences, they're convicted more, they are wrongfully convicted, all of this disproportionately more. Forensics and technology fuels every step of that process. In many cases, it is supposed technology that sends police into the community, that tells them who to stop and who to arrest. It's supposed technology, algorithms, that says they should be detained in jails before their trial, that says this is the guy who did the crime. Supposed technology that says they deserve a long sentence. But what if it is wrong? Even just sometimes. What if when you swipe right, it's not really a match? You just wanted it to be. Faulty forensics is a major contributor to miscarriages of justice. It is a contributing factor in more than 1 out of every 5 wrongful convictions. That's over 700 wrongful convictions uncovered to date, and those are just the ones we know about. And on top of it all, not only do they get away with looking like science, feeling like science, even if there's not that much science behind them, but forensics and the technology we see in criminal cases, they make pulling you over, they make stopping you, frisking you, arresting you, prosecuting you, convicting you, sentencing you, they make it look clean, even when it's dirty. We know that every now and then you swipe right and you get a match, but is it really? So where do we go from here? Well, we have 2 choices. We can keep on swiping left and ignore the junk, or we can scrutinize it. Before I joined UMB and since I joined UMB, that's what I've been working on. And I want you to join me. We owe it to our communities to make sure that the stuff that's used to suck them into the criminal legal system works how it's supposed to work, and that it isn't being misused, and that people like us are looking at it carefully before it's deployed against the most vulnerable members of our community. That's part of our job here at UMB. It's part of our public service mission to educate each other and serve our community. So here's one simple thing you can do, one little step you can take. Next time you get a jury summons, don't moan and groan and try to get out of it. It's important. We need good, smart, thoughtful jurors. And tell everyone in your family and your household the same thing. And when you get on that jury and you're listening to that case and you hear about all the so-called crime-fighting technology or whatever it is in that case, think critically about it. Ask yourself if it's really doing what they claim it's doing. Use your university mind. Think about it like a scientist, not like someone on Tinder or Bumble. Because one of the biggest dangers of faulty forensics is that it's stealth. Look around. Most of us here may not have even known it had any problems at all, but it can lead to unfairness in the criminal process. And it means that if we want to change how our communities are policed and prosecuted, we have to fix the science. Because otherwise, we're just swiping left. Thank you.
Thank you, Menka. That was phenomenal. I will say to you, we have 7 schools here with people just as capable and passionate as Menka, and it's just a phenomenal place to be. And I urge you to keep that in your mind as we go ahead. The second person I would like to introduce is from the School of Nursing. There's no contest here, right? Professor Yolanda Abulu. Yolanda is a nurse practitioner in the School of Nursing and also director of the Office of Global Health. She grew up right next door in West Baltimore. And she's here today to discuss social connections yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yolanda, tell us about social connections.
Thanks, everybody. So grateful to be here, a place where I just love to be. There's a sign outside of the School of Nursing that lists the University of Maryland, Baltimore's core values. And as I walk by that sign, I'm always so happy to see that hashtag UMB to the core. I love that hashtag UMB to the core because it reminds me of growing up in Baltimore. There was a statement that we used to say in Baltimore, Baltimore to the core. In this phrase, there's a message of deep love for our city, for its beauty, and good times and bad. So I'm extremely blessed to be at home in Baltimore and at UMB. As a child, I walked up and down that very street behind you. It's where I shopped. It's where I passed to go to my favorite place, the library on Cathedral Street. The library was my safe haven. It's where I hid reading books and old newspapers. Looking back now, I look around in this neighborhood and out here, and so much has changed. So much has changed, including me. Being here with you in person is really exciting. I could feel the energy as we processed in, and it's just so exciting to be here with everybody in person. It's hard to believe that we couldn't do this. For nearly 3 years, so many of us have been unable to connect with one another. Many of us have experienced total social isolation at times, and if not, partial. Like so many of you, I miss my loved ones, my friends, my colleagues that I wanted to just see in person and give a hug. My 79-year-old mother, who still lives in West Baltimore, refused to let me in her home for a whole year. Instead, she opted to just wave hello to me from her door. I called her, I sent her virtual hugs, I sent her a text message, but nothing could take the place of seeing her in person. We all have our stories because isolation impacted all of us during COVID. In fact, social isolation became a household word. I felt it. You felt it. We all felt it. But what if social isolation was a way of life? What if those social disconnections continued long term? What if you continue to be isolated from family and friends? What if you were afraid to let your child out to play because you know that that boom sound you just heard was not a car backfiring? What if you're an aging adult that prefers to hide behind a bolted door rather than go see your primary care provider because you have to catch 2 buses and take a 2-hour journey just to get your blood pressure checked? This depicts what social isolation looks like in my childhood neighborhood. Experiences with social isolation is concerning because social isolation is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And it increases your risk of heart disease and premature death, especially for people that were isolated as children. People in the neighborhood I grew up, they know what social isolation is. They understand its health impacts, the impact you now understand because of what you just went through during the pandemic. Because of my experiences as a child, I was really curious about social isolation as a nurse researcher. I wondered, and I wanted to see if people continued to be socially isolated. And if so, I wondered, what can we do about it? So prior to the pandemic, my research team and I started listening to community residents in West Baltimore to understand social isolation. In these conversations, community members share stories of good times, times when grandmothers brought everybody together, times when it was customary to know your neighbors. They remembered the beauty of Baltimore, from the Afro Clean Block competition to the painted screens in East Baltimore. They recalled having meaningful social connections with families and neighbors. Their comments reminded me of my grandmother. You see, I used to catch the bus every Sunday to Cherry Hill to see my grandmother, Eliza. She worked as a housekeeper in University Hospital, as we called it at that time. I would arrive, I would be so excited because she would immediately offer me candy and offer to play a game of cards. She purposefully invested time and energy in me, and in exchange, she had pretty high expectations. She fondly called me Dr. Yolanda and insisted that when she was cleaning the patients' rooms, she heard them calling me overhead. Like many other grandmothers in my community, my grandmother believed that it takes a village to raise a child. My grandmother knew what I know now about Baltimore's greatest asset. The power of Baltimore is in its people. Growing up in West Baltimore, my neighbors looked out for me while my parents were at work. They encouraged me to do the right thing. My teachers encouraged me to let my light shine when I was too shy to even raise my hand and ask a question. And the local librarian on Cathedral Street, she answered all of life's toughest questions. Fast forward to my time here at UMB, I was very fortunate to have faculty and professors, many like you, like Jeff Johnson and Susan Wozinski in the School of Nursing, who gave me the words to help me understand my life experiences. They introduced me to the concepts of social justice and health equity. And that really projected me to be able to do the work that I do now. These are the words that I use now to explain why so many of the negative experiences that I witnessed as a child are avoidable, they're unfair, they're unjust. It is my social connections, though, with my professors, with my grandmother, with special mentors like Esther McCready, Shirley Nathan Pulliam, that opened doors for a better tomorrow. Despite the strong connections of yesterday, many of the community members we spoke to reported that social bonds like those with our grandmother have diminished over time. They reported weakened social ties have occurred, not because of a personal choice or an individual problem, but because it's rooted in community design and in social injustice. One father said to me, imagine living on a street with 20 houses. 12 of the homes are vacant. 4 of them have elderly neighbors that are hid behind their door with fear of venturing out. So yes, I feel isolated. And as a parent, daily, I worry about letting my children outside to play, even though I know making social connections is important. Where we live, think about it, where we live impacts all the social connections that we're able to make. Baltimore is not alone in the challenges it faces. I've been fortunate to have a career in global health. And one of the things that I've learned is that there are cities like Baltimore all over the globe. And social isolation is not specific to Baltimore. It's a global epidemic, and it's growing. So it's not just a challenge for older adults or something that just happened because of the pandemic. When we look around in Baltimore, it's been here for years. Community members made it clear that they're not victims. They don't want our sympathy, they want action, and recommended solutions to address the challenges. In our interviews, they asked that people like us in academia listen more before acting. They recommended creating safe spaces for them to convene, for them to mentor each other, for them to share and learn about their common experiences. They asked for community partners to advocate with them for increased access to affordable and safe housing, for reliable transportation, for better schools, and healthcare positioned right in their neighborhood. They imagined a day where they did not have to leave their community to get the social resources that they need. They wanted recreation centers for their children to play and effective local bus transportation. Imagine that. They are no different than us. They want what we want. They want places to connect. They want places to love. They want places to work and play. Let me share 2 projects at University of Maryland that I'm a part of that is examples of what we can do about this together. After listening to community members, we wanted to focus on belonging and well-being, and thus the Belong to Baltimore program emerged. The program provided support groups and a family navigator to parents of young children from West Baltimore to increase social connections. And at the end of 1 year, families reported they felt more connected. They had diminished social need as it relates to food, housing, income generation, education, and better physical and mental health. And now there's a new project, the West Baltimore Rich Collaborative, which is a collaboration of hospitals, community-based organizations, all working together to reduce social isolation and hypertension in our neighboring community. Partnering with schools like social work, Stacy Stevens, she couldn't be here today, the School of Pharmacy, the School of Medicine, and the Masters in Public Health program has been instrumental. After all, collaboration is what we do at UMB. Most importantly, community members have been actively engaged. not just as participants, but as employees of our university and part of the research team. They keep us grounded and focused on the reality. They are the best. Some of them are here with us today. Janet North Kabor, our program manager, a resident of West Baltimore, she raised an interesting point with me recently about the need for tighter social connections between organizations and communities. She called for a movement above and beyond community engagement. Janet coined the term community marriage. She suggested the need for a more deliberately, publicly expressed long-term commitment. That's what we're doing at UMB. The time for innovation and discovery to address social factors that impact health is now. And this pivotal turning moment where we all understand social isolation and its negative impacts, now is the time to act. Some of you might be thinking right now that addressing social factors as I described is too big. Wow, those are huge problems. That the work is beyond what we do at UMB, that the programs presented are ambitious, the expectations high, and the stakes high. Yes, the work is hard, but it's not impossible. After all, boldly facing critical challenges is who we are at UMB. Tackling big problems and finding solutions is the soul of what we do at UMB. We were audacious enough to think we could make a difference in HIV, not just in the United States, but also abroad. We are bold enough to say we could find a vaccine for COVID, and I believe that we can boldly address the social factors that impact health, especially for our neighbors who just live blocks from where we're standing. We can all start by tightening our own social connection, ensuring that staff, faculty, students that are in your environment feel like they belong here at UMB. Teaching social justice, health equity in our curriculums by hiring community members and purposefully investing in community-centered innovation. This important work is being done because it's really important that as we look forward generations from now, that a girl who lives 2 blocks away from here can walk out of her home, hop on her bike, ride to UMB, stop at Lexington Market and get something to eat with her friends, and then go to the library and check out a book, all without thinking that she wouldn't be able to do so. I'm optimistic for tomorrow, and I look forward to the future where we at UMB can look back and say that we played an important role in creating stronger social connections, not just for ourselves, but for our neighbors. Thank you.
Dr. Yolanda, that was fabulous. It's a powerful, emotional message, and we can do that. Our last speaker is Professor Mary Lynn Mcpherson from the School of Pharmacy. She is an expert on palliative care, something which most of us don't know a whole lot about. She's going to discuss it. Professor Mcpherson?
Esteemed platform party, distinguished professor recipients, colleagues, and guests. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So July 30th, 2020 was a dark, dark day for me. That's the day that Nordstrom's in Annapolis closed. It was a dark day. When I say Nordstrom's, what do you think of? Oh my goodness, their stores are gorgeous. They carry amazing inventory. They're just gorgeous. Do you think it's a coincidence that the escalator lands up in the ladies' shoe department. I don't think so. And don't even get me started on their jewelry department. Just amazing. Their staff are excruciatingly polite. They aren't even allowed to hand you your bag over the counter. They have to come around the counter to hand you your parcel. And their gift boxes, oh, don't even get me started on their gift boxes. They're the best. We would reuse Nordstrom's gift boxes at Christmas only for really good friends and family. Then when the store closed, the good friends were out of here. They were off the list. Now that they've been closed 2 years, the gift boxes can only be used for a family member that lives in the same house, so the box never leaves the house. Very important. And we've all heard the tales about how Nordstrom's will take anything back as a return, even a set of tires. You've all heard that urban legend, right? Okay, so Nordstrom's doesn't do tires, but you know what Nordstrom's does do? Service. You know who else does service? Palliative care. I believe that palliative care is everyone's right and responsibility, and we only get one shot to do it right. In my mind, palliative care is the ultimate in service to others. Palliative care is traditionally thought of as caring for patients and their families, providing that extra layer of support when they're living in the face of serious illness. Palliative care touches everyone. No one is getting out of here alive. I'm sure you have all heard the Harvard Law School legendary address given to incoming students. Look to your left, look to your right. At the end of the year, one of you won't be here. I can go you one better. So I want you to look to your left. Come on, look to your left. Look to your right. In 50 or 60 years, you're all going to be gone. So we'd better get this right because we only get one shot. Palliative care is our right and responsibility. We won't get a redo, so we have to get it right the first time. What are the patient's needs and wishes? Let's make sure we use good communication skills addressing those issues important to the patient. What are the needs of the family, and are we addressing those? Let's develop an individual plan of care that is holistic and addresses the biopsychosocial needs of everyone in the loop. But palliative care goes beyond caring for the dying. I remember years and years ago, I got a cold, and of course I did not take care of myself. Instead, I hopped on a plane to go to Cleveland to train with the Cleveland Clinic Palliative Care team. During the week, I got sicker and sicker and sicker. And when I got back home, I actually landed in the hospital with like quadruple pneumonia. It was bad. I was so congested and so sick. I remember begging the nurse, please make sure I'm still breathing during the night. Please don't let me die. She solemnly swore she would do just that. Now, of course, even though I felt like I was dying, I really wasn't, but it was tremendously reassuring. Such a sense of relief knowing that that nurse had my back. The nurse gave me palliative care in that instance. We must always consider, what does it mean to take care of someone? How can we do what's needed in the moment? If this was your mom, your sister, your child, how would you want them treated? We owe a debt of palliative care service to everyone and anyone we meet. The second thing I'd like to talk about is focusing a bit more on who are our customers in palliative care. Who are we providing service to? The obvious customer, as I just said, is palliative care, is patients and their families affected by serious illness. What service do we provide this vulnerable population? I just shared that palliative care is a holistic biopsychosocial model of care. As a pharmacist, my particular expertise is pharmacopalliation, picking the best drug to treat a physical symptom with the lowest burden possible. But I'm pretty convinced that we must be prepared to practice in a transdisciplinary fashion. I always say that I am not happy until everybody around me goes home 10% pharmacist. And you can be sure I am 10% social worker, 10% nurse, 10% chaplain, and so forth. If I'm visiting a patient to discuss their drug therapy, but the patient interrupts me to say, hey, the doctor was just here and he said, I've only got about a month left. Do you believe that? I can't just throw something casually out like, sorry, sir, that's not my jam. You have to be prepared for any contingency. Palliative care providers work in a transdisciplinary fashion to cover the waterfront. We have a saying in drug information that the medication question someone asks you isn't necessarily the question they want answered. I've learned by channeling my inner social worker that sometimes the most powerful thing I can say to a patient or family member is, tell me more. Very important. Good communication is not just a buzz phrase, it's the real deal. People just want to be heard and understood. I remember when I was in pharmacy school just down the road a little bit here, and Dr. Robert Beardsley was teaching a class on communication skills. One day he said, you'll be in your pharmacy and a patient will come in and be very angry about something. They may even be yelling in your face. You should say to them, you seem to be upset. I remember thinking, is this guy for real? Somebody is going to be yelling in my face and I'm supposed to say, you seem to be upset? I thought Dr. Beardsley was out of touch with reality on that one. Let's fast forward 5 years, and I'm in clinic at University Care Waxter, as it was known at that time. I was seeing a patient for the first time who was indeed very upset about his poorly controlled chronic pain. Again, this is the first time I'm meeting him, and here he is yelling in my face. I remember thinking, what is wrong with this guy? I have no idea why he's so upset, and he's sitting between me and the door. What am I going to do? I thought of Dr. Beardsley, and when the patient paused to suck in a breath, I jumped in and very softly said, you seem to be upset. My takeaway observation was it's really hard to yell at someone if they've just agreed with you. This is an upsetting situation. And of course, I followed with my other line, tell me more. I gave that man palliative care. But the recipients of palliative care are not just patients and their families. How about our students, our colleagues? Students see how passionately I feel about palliative care, and that gets them excited. I'll bet 90% of the applicants to all of our schools, when you ask that important question, why do you want to be a physician, a nurse, a social worker, a pharmacist, or whatever it may be, they say, because I want to help people. That's palliative care. But we have to practice what we preach. I mentioned earlier that it doesn't have to be a dying patient for you to use your palliative care skills. How about our students and colleagues? How can we be in the moment with them? A student in our new PhD in palliative care program asked for a little grace during a course last semester as her grandmother, who raised her, lay dying. She later wrote in her reflective journal post, what a team at UMB. I always knew the palliative care team model was for me, but the fact that this kind of compassion even spills into palliative care education just confirms I'm in the right place. We can show others in our lives a little grace and compassion by passionately adhering to the service of palliative care. The last point about the service of palliative care that I'd like to share is the importance of recognizing the tipping point moment. This could be when we've gotten to the point where the benefits and burdens of an intervention are about equal, or perhaps the burden is even winning in this circumstance. But if you ever say to a patient, there's nothing more I can offer you or do for you, like my friend Liam Neeson says, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will not be happy with you. Absolutely. Palliative care helps us weigh the benefits and burdens of treatments such that we can balance the quality and quantity of life. Let me be clear, palliative care is not the withdrawal of care. It's providing care that is consistent with the patient and family's goals of care. We call this goal concordant care. For every therapeutics module we teach at the School of Pharmacy, we have a learning activity toward the end of that module that addresses how and when to de-escalate therapy. It's really important. In my practice, this is often a conversation about continuing versus stopping medications. Research has shown us, and this will blow your mind, on the day a patient dies, 1/3 of those patients will have received a dose of a preventative drug. What's with that? Deprescribing is a normal part of the prescribing continuum, but you can bet you had better have some seriously good communication skills when these conversations occur at the end of life. Try talking an adult into stopping grandma's statin after their heart doctor said, "You'll be taking this for the rest of your life. This just in, you can go to heaven with an LDL over 100. It's all good." When breaking serious news to a patient and family, sometimes the best thing we can do is to be a compassionate presence. Sometimes you just have to sit with the sadness, and you only get the one shot. Only get one shot. But in all of our roles and relationships, we may need to give or react to serious or bad news. Maybe it's a student whose mother just got bad news, or maybe a colleague who just got some career-related bad news. Even though you can't fix it, you can be that compassionate presence. That's the service of palliative care, and you only usually get one shot. I recall a few years ago, one of our pharmacy students, one of my advisees, asked to meet with me. It was residency recruiting season, and she had applied for several residency positions. She was crying uncontrollably. She was a hot mess. She was absolutely positively convinced she would not match for a residency position. Well, as a professional catastrophizer myself, I recognized the situation for what it was and knew immediately that we had to run the baby chicken little was right game. So I said to her, "First," I explained, "I think you've got a very good chance of matching for a residency, but let's imagine what will become of you if you do not match. What will you do?" In between sobs, she said, "Well, I guess I'll have to take a job working as a pharmacist." "Okay, and what will your starting salary be?" "Oh, I think it's about $125,000, $130,000. "Okay, so let me get this straight. On the slim chance you do not match with the residency, the absolute positive worst thing that can happen to you is you'll have to accept a job as a pharmacist earning $125,000 to $130,000 a year, gain a year of experience, and reapply next year. Am I correct?" Crisis averted. That was a palliative care moment. I gave her what she needed in that moment. Some of you may be old enough to remember William Donald Schaefer. He was mayor of Baltimore and then governor of Maryland. To be sure, he was a scamp, wasn't he? But he would ask everyone he met, "Have you helped someone today?" Palliative care is a service to others best served with equal measures of passion and compassion. You don't have to be trained in palliative care to do this work. But if you want to apply for our Master of Science or PhD in palliative care, I am happy to take your application. You can do this. Keep your eyes open for those opportunities. When President Gerald called me and said, "I'd like you to talk about palliative care, but I want you to make it sexy." I hope I've convinced you that palliative care is an unalienable right and responsibility. It touches every single one of us, and often you only get that one shot. I hope you thought my presentation was sexy. And if you could sign the petition to bring back Nordstrom's and Annapolis as you exit, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
I get blamed for everything. But I will say, important topic, and it'll be important to each one of us. And so hence it's on the schedule. But one thing's for sure, I'm not going to be looking to my left or my right anymore. So here you are, you're under the big UMB tent. You just heard 3 amazing messages from 3 amazing faculty members, examples of service from other tents on this campus, things that most of us have never thought about, but things that are important to each of us. And yet, here they are at UMB. Please join me again in thanking our 3 speakers. I hope you can see that you, as faculty here in this room, are the lifeblood of UMB. You bring passion to the table. You just heard it, didn't you? You create an intellectual environment here at UMB. You guide our students, not only to see the future, but to design the future and execute it. You embody the spirit of a public university, and my hat, even though I don't have it on, is off to you. Thank you for that. You know society's problems, and I'm hoping that together, we on this campus, under all of our tents, can work together to find solutions for Baltimore for sure, but for Maryland and for our nation, which needs it mightily right now. You are, as faculty, the reputation of UMB. I have little doubt that if you put your mind to it, you can strengthen the public trust in higher education, trust in for them to know what we do here and why it's important, because that's being lost today in dialogue. You can change the world. Will you is the question. So I want to ask each of you the following request of me, and that is whatever tent you are under, remember to see yourself also under a bigger tent as well, the UMB tent. Please make connections. It will make us stronger, and it will allow us to stay true to our mission to improve the human condition. All of our missions, and especially our mission to keep a spotlight shining on our service commitment to this community and this state. UMB cannot succeed without you. It can succeed mightily with you. I hope that you are each proud to be a part of the incredible faculty here at UMB. Thank you. So that ends our ceremony. We will process out, I believe, and there will be food in the back and a reception. All of the food is supplied by West Baltimore businesses, so please enjoy it. Thank you very much.